This is the video for Wednesday, September the 2nd. In 1675, the Wampanoag Indians are going to attack Massachusetts Bay. The fighting is quite bloody, particularly on the outskirts of Boston. The war becomes known as King Philip's War. The leader of the Wampanoags was Metacomet, yet to the English he was referred to as King Philip. King Philip's War will end in 1676 when King Philip will be captured by Massachusetts militia. King Philip will be drawn and quartered, and his head will be placed on a pike in Salem, Massachusetts. Every May, children would dance around a pole to show that they were happy that King Philip was dead. The children of the Wampanoags and the wives of the Wampanoags would be sold into slavery. This is the last time we will hear about any type of Native American threat to New England. Most Native Americans now will move over into what we would today call upstate New York. In 1660, Virginia and Massachusetts was a thriving colony, but between these two colonies was the Hudson River and the Dutch colony of New Netherlands. New Netherlands was a threat to the commerce between the English colonies in New England and the English colony of Maryland and Virginia. The Dutch colony had few colonists. The colonists were tightly controlled by the Dutch crown, and the Dutch crown representative in New Netherlands was Peter Stuyvesant. He was very much in favor of keeping this land. In 1660, Oliver Cromwell had died. The Stuarts are invited back to the throne. Now, of course, throne is spelled incorrect. Charles II, grandson of the executed monarch, was installed as king. Now, for Charles II to be installed, he is going to have to borrow a lot of money to pay off a lot of political favors. One of the favors is to his own brother. Now, Charles II is going to order his brother, and this is his brother James, to go to the Hudson River Valley and take over the land and say the claim is based on the voyages of John Cabot. Now, Charles II's brother, James, who is the Duke of York, that's a title, that means he's going to be the next king of England, is also the head of the Navy. James will sail into New Amsterdam Harbor. He will call for the surrender, and reluctantly Peter Stuyvesant will surrender. At this time, all of the land that borders the Hudson River will be given to the Duke of York and his brother, the king. They become the proprietors. Lord Berkeley and George Carteret, two who had helped Charles II get to the throne, are given a large tract of land south of the Hudson River. They renamed their land New Jersey. New York and New Jersey would be considered proprietary colonies. The charter was in the name of the person who had received the land, and that person now could pretty much do whatever he wanted to do to the land. The Duke of York, who controls what is now New York, will make very few changes. He will basically say to the patroons of the wealthy Dutch families, "You're out," and he will say to the wealthy English families who had installed the Stuarts onto the throne, "I want you to take over these lands." In the 1660s, Charles II is going to grant land to some of his favorites that began just south of Virginia. Now, for our purposes, I'm going to refer to the land as South Carolina. But to be perfectly honest, the land was just called Carolina. Carol was the wife of Charles II. Now, the largest settlement to be built in the Carolinas was the harbor at Charlestown. Charlestown was named in honor of King Charles. And by 1680, Charlestown was a thriving settlement, and Carolina was a thriving colony. Carolina found its cash crop in rice and indigo. Now, by the way, it is around it's almost the year 1700 before Carolina will be divided into South and North. Charleston is a great harbor, and docks are created. So we've given away land to our brother. We've given away land to Carteret and Berkeley. We've given away land to some of our favorites, and yet we have yet to give away the biggest chunk of property. In 1680, the king is going to have a mountain of debt, and to pay off this mountain of debt, he's going to borrow even more money. One of the people he's going to borrow money from is the Penn family. Now, William Penn is fairly elderly and dies unexpectedly. So the power in the Penn family shifts to William Penn. This is a picture of William Penn here. Charles II asked William Penn, would he prefer to have land or would he prefer to have money? William Penn chose land. The land he was given, he would name Penn's Woods, or Pennsylvania. Now, Penn had a purpose for this land. Penn was a member of the Society of Friends, better known as the Quakers. Now, Quakers were pacifists. They would not join the army, and if asked to join the army, they would refuse. Quakers would not take oaths, so they would not pledge allegiance to the king. They would not swear on a Bible if they were called to testify in a court. The Quakers were hated in England. Pretty much they were hated all over Europe and had been locked up for years and years and years. Penn decided he was going to do something about it. And Penn began to advertise in England. He began to advertise in Europe that if you were a Quaker, you were welcome to come to his land of Pennsylvania, and he would sell you the land. Now, Penn's strategy worked well, and lots of people began to descend on Pennsylvania, many of them Quakers. Penn decided that he would make his home and his capital in a city that he believed he would design himself. It became known as the City of Brotherly Love, or Philadelphia. In time, the king will give even more land to the colony of Pennsylvania. Composed of people from many nations and many faiths, the population of Pennsylvania will increase so that by the time we get to the year 1700, Pennsylvania is the most populous colony in the English New World. Pennsylvania will remain the most populous colony and later state until about the 1820s, when New York will take over. Many of the people who came to Pennsylvania were Germans. They spoke German, and many people refer to them by their nationality, Deutsch. The German word for Germany is Deutsch. This land became known as the Pennsylvania Dutch, but it was German. Now, the next slide is a video. Unfortunately, the videos have been blocked by YouTube of late, so I'm going to press on. By the 17th century, that would be the late 1600s, English colonies have created settlement in the land where the Blue Ridge Mountains begin. Now, that's on the extreme western fringe of Virginia and Maryland. There, many of the settlers are going to battle the Indians. One of these settlers is Nathaniel Bacon. Now, Nathaniel Bacon was a man who believed that he was of noble birth, although no nobleman claimed him. And Bacon believed that this land in the western part of Virginia should be given to him, not sold, but given to him because of his aristocratic birth. The colonists who had come over with Bacon are being attacked by the Native Americans. Bacon is going to call upon the governor. Bacon is going to call upon the House of Burgess to give him help. Neither the governor nor the House of Burgess is going to give any help to Nathaniel Bacon. Bacon then will organize his own army and he will defeat the Indians. But then Bacon will turn his army toward Jamestown. And Bacon will march into Jamestown to get even with the colonial legislature. The colonial legislature had all scattered to the hills, and in 1672 they will burn Jamestown to the ground. That's why if you went to Jamestown today, it would be hard to find, because all of the buildings were burned down. The same year, Bacon will return to the Blue Ridge Mountains, and somewhere between Jamestown and his home in the Blue Ridge, he will develop a disease and he will die. Bacon's rebellion, though, is noteworthy because it shows the difference between those who lived in the frontier region of Western Virginia and those who were firmly ensconced in the Tidewater region. We'll talk more about this in the next lesson. In 1690, the land between Virginia and the Carolinas was divided up into South Carolina and North Carolina. Now, North Carolina was always the poorer of the three colonies. Virginia and South Carolina used to always make fun of North Carolinians. They used to always say that North Carolinians were so poor they couldn't afford shoes. You could always tell a North Carolinian by simply looking at the tar on his heel. Now, of course, the University of North Carolina now uses that as their mascot, the Tar Heels. North Carolina did find a cash crop in what are called naval stores. Now, England had pretty much cut down all of the trees that were to be cut down. And so in North Carolina, giant pines were felled and placed aboard ships. Hemp, which is a weed and can be used to turn into rope, was turned into rope, and of course tar was used to coat the bottom of the ship so that the ship would not sink. Because of events back in England at the end of the 17th century and the beginning of the 18th century, the Stuart family had been kicked out of England. Now, the Stuarts had gone back to the old idea that we are going to make England a Catholic country. Now, this is under James II, the former Duke of York. James II will be asked to leave. It's what the English call the Glorious Revolution. And when James left for Holland, all of the land that he and his brother had given away will be taken back, save Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania will stay in the hands of the Penn family. By 1700, the English saw a need to take over the Swedish colony that was along the Susquehanna and Delaware River. The colony of Delaware was created. Now, to get to Philadelphia, the easiest way to get up to it is to sail up the Susquehanna River, which means on one bank would be the colony of Virginia and Maryland, and on the other side of the bank would be the colony of Delaware. It was important that Delaware be taken over. Delaware, by the way, is one of the smallest states of the United States today. Our last colony developed in the 1730s. The colony was started by James Oglethorpe. Now, Oglethorpe had a great idea. In those days, if you could not pay your bills, you were placed in what was called debtor prison. And in debtor prison, you would stay and work. And when your bills were paid off, you could get out. Oglethorpe suggested, why not take these debtors and put them in a colony? These debtors could then pay off their debts, work in the colony, and that would make the colony a thriving colony. He was granted permission by the king, and he named the colony in honor of the new king, King George I, or Georgia. Georgia was not very successful. The debtors are going to walk away, and that will be the end of their debts. But Georgia remains, and soon Georgia is sold off. Savannah becomes an excellent harbor. James II had followed his father to the throne in 1680. James had called for a rebirth of the Catholic Church in Great Britain. Parliament is going to meet, and they are going to say to the Stuarts and the followers of the Stuarts that there would be another war. And this would be a war in which all of the Stuarts would be wiped out. The Stuarts agreed to exile themselves in Holland. This became known as the Glorious Revolution. Now, with this glorious revolution, all property reverted to the crown, save Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania would stay in the hands of the Penn family until 1781, when the British gave control of their colonies to each of the individual states. Okay, well, we're going to stop here today.